And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the CEO briefing. A very exciting one this time. We had this quarterly, the first of what will be a quarterly Trusted Investor Conference, and very candid, very open. Lots was discussed. I think you're going to like it a lot. So water really is developing as a new asset. We know that, and there's reasons why. We're going to talk tonight about the Biden administration and where that's going with the $2 trillion infrastructure plan. What does that mean for us, for America, et cetera? So it is April 1st. I think we're done with all the April Fools today, and let's get it on. So safe harbor statements as usual. We try very best to tell you what's going to happen, but it has not been reviewed by the Securities Exchange Commission. And of course, you should always rely on the 10K reports and the 10Q. There is a 10K report due over the next few days. We will be commenting on that after it comes out. But one thing I can tell you is that we did not qualify for the Paycheck Protection Plan, PPP, second phase, because you had to lose money over 2019. And we didn't have a single quarter where we were below 2019. That's all I can say. So we're going to leave it at that. All right, let's cover some important points here. What about this new $2 trillion infrastructure plan? Will it do the job? Well, it's very good commentary from Barron's, and they don't think so. Let's see why that is so. So we need it. We know we need it. And the issue is, however, that, we know, and I've been talking about this for a long time, lack of funding of water utilities, deferred upgrades, C grade. We're supposed to be the best country in the world, and we have a C grade infrastructure. That's terrible, but that's unfortunately the way it is. And here's a stat: water main break every 2 minutes, and 6 billion gallons of treated water lost each day in the US. That's a lot of water. And of course, that's revenue lost and many other things. Of course, you've heard about Flint, Jackson, Compton, California, places like South Bend, which have very toxic water. Now, here's what the point is. The Biden administration wants to focus on replacing all the nation's lead pipes. Why? Because everybody's top of mind about Flint, and there is no safe level of lead in your water. The problem with that is that you're going to have to replace everything all the way into the water heaters in homes, because that's how far the lead gets to. And it's going to, because it's all buried and so forth, it could take 20 years to complete. I think a better plan might be to do it decentralized and just treat the water when it comes into a home. But again, governments love to do big central projects because there's big money in it. It's huge. Look at what happened with the LA Metro. I mean, it ran billions over, and the people who made money in and out of government was just a scandal, but it's what to be expected. That's why California is trying to build a high-speed rail to nowhere, because of the money, right? So centralized solutions are just not working. Now, in addition, we've got these problems of population growth, climate change. We're not going to argue climate change here. It's clear that we have droughts and storms and so forth happening. And there's just plain old saltwater intrusion from the aquifers being drained in places like South Florida. And the Colorado River, which is a huge watershed for the West Coast, has been dropping now for 21 years. Not going to happen, not going to change anytime soon. So that's the issue really there, is that the Biden administration is trying hard to do something about it, and we applaud that. But trying to deal with toxin levels, we've been running $100 billion behind for decades now, since the 1960s. So it's a lot more than $2 trillion needed. And by the way, the $2 trillion is like highways, energy, social justice, a wide variety of things. So water is a fraction of that. And then they want to do it on a central basis, which is a non-starter. But it's better than nothing at all. So let's take a look then at more about what's going on with America's water. Very good report from The Guardian, and they reported on alarming levels of what's called forever chemicals, which is these polyfluoroalkyl substances called PFAS. And what they are basically is what you have in your Teflon, right? And there's as much as 80 parts per trillion, and that is the maximum is 10 parts. Arsenic, similar problem. Up to, looks like 9.5 parts per billion, 3 parts is appropriate. And, it has also been linked to cancer as well as lowered IQ in children. Finally, lead. There is no safe level of lead. And everybody's got lead. It's just one of those things. So now what they're trying to do is to start at least with something that they can tackle, like, okay, 10 parts per billion. But even that's a problem. Again, it would be much better to just deal with the problem on a decentralized basis, home by home, and just give them a whole home water system rather than try and fix everything and still have to fix the home with the water heaters. Tap water is no longer a solution, is the bottom line. We use the tap water as a pre-treat, but we've got to treat the tap water. That is where it's at. Remember last week we got into the whole consumer side of water on demand, and we think that's going to be a huge play. Okay, we just got an article today in the Sun Sentinel, South Florida Sun Sentinel, and the county down there, Broward, is shooting treated waste, it's pretty nasty stuff still, way, 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 way down, and says, it's fine. The problem is, of course, these things drift upward and end up in our water system. So Dan Early was called in to comment on that, and he commented about ammonia especially, that the ammonia is a problem in drinking water. And unfortunately, there is litigation now over this. And the problem is, again, 20 years to clean up. So again, why treat the central problem? Just say it's not good water, remediate it. Here's another problem that one of our staunch investors sent to me, Adam Collar. And this is about a coal-fired plant in Georgia, whereas there's been decades and decades of lobbyists. Here's this Mark Berry was trying to do something about it, and he tried to convince these regulators that the Georgia Power customers should foot the bill. Well, he really would have been well off telling the story, because for decades now there's been tainting, and this really illustrates for me why regulatory relief, don't hold your breath, because it's always cheaper to buy a lobbyist in Washington than to spend billions. In this case, it's going to be $7.5 billion to solve the problem. And so you've got to go directly to a solution you can handle internally. And if I'm all about, great lobbyists and so forth saving the day, but we've got to do something about this today. In other words, we really need a breakthrough solution. Chris Worth, check up on SEC Regulation CF. Should go well with your investor finance equipment leasing program. That's a very good point. Reg CF was $1 million. It's now been increased. What's great about it is it's very fast approvals, easy to get going and raise the money. We are in talks, Chris, with people who would do Reg A, Reg CF, that kind of stuff with us to do exactly that. So thank you for that idea. Wouldn't it be cheaper? Justin Curtis says, wouldn't it be cheaper to not add HFSA that etches lead in the population? Right. Well, again, I don't pretend to be an expert on this, but what I'm saying is decentralization is our only way forward. I talked about 20 briefings ago about Miami-Dade County and how they have this terrible problem of septic tanks all over the county. And they want to literally spend something like $10 billion to put in sewage lines to all these places, because it's very, Miami-Dade was built up without sewage lines. They just did it on the cheap. Well, don't spend the $8 billion. Just go ahead and give some tax rebates for these places to take care of themselves. And they just put in a closed circuit cleanup solution for their water. So you're not going to convince government about that. They just don't think decentralized. Decentralization has got to come from us. And that's the fact. Okay, so JRW, greetings, just got in. All right. So let's go ahead and share screen and show you some highlights from the show yesterday. So what I wanted to do was, first of all, start by showing you a new presentation about the business direction. And a lot of this is very preliminary, and I'll be looking for your input on a lot of it. So here we go. Water on demand. And this is, we're playing with the taglines. This is really making the point that when you make a water on demand customer, you really have them for life as opposed to just selling them a piece of machinery. So what are we talking about here? Well, we know there's a world water crisis. You wouldn't be investing if you didn't think so. We have water loss going on. We have really terrible situations worldwide with safe water, sanitation, sewage, et cetera. And on top of it, in the United States, not so great either. We think we're great, we're not. So cities are falling behind. They're supposed to be handling the wastewater. There's a problem there. And non-revenue water, which means leakage and other ways that utilities lose water revenue, is as high as 1/3. And the problem is only getting worse as we move into the new decade at 105 billion per year of unaddressed losses. Now, there's supposed to be a $2 trillion infrastructure bill coming in the fall. It's by no means clear that water will benefit, and that is because when we think infrastructure, we tend to think of roads, railways, and energy. And there's a lot of social justice that will be done as part of that. So we can't count on municipalities getting better. What does that mean? Well, the federal government has not been helping. They were contributing 63%, and now it's all the way down to 9%. So not a good picture, and it's been dwindling. And water rates are rising very fast, and in many places like Austin, they are beyond the ability of people to pay out of their normal. And I think this is going to get worse and worse. Now, businesses know that there's a problem. They're aware of it. These are the companies over $1 billion in revenues, and 3/4 say this water is an increasing priority, growing business risk, and 88% plan to actively manage, but they have no plan in place, 44%. Now, these are the big companies that have awareness about sustainability. They often have a sustainability officer. Small companies, very, very frequently like, yeah, I would just like to make my payroll this month, please. And so they're even less managing their water use. So there is awareness, but as companies get smaller and smaller, there's less and less of an ability to do something about it. Now, by the way, we can argue about climate change all we want, but it is turning into a real issue in terms of droughts. Taiwan has had a big problem, and they're incredibly good at managing it, but they're dealing with the fact that it's going to be perhaps worse and worse. And here's an interesting point, and that is that as the digital economy grows by leaps and bounds, few people realize that water is a major requirement for data centers, and that means that it's a threat if you can't get the water. Again, these data centers, this is what's interesting, is that we can actually have a green benefit by consuming less energy. The more water is used efficiently, less energy there is, and in turn, we do wonderful things for climate change, for the money, and for less stress on water supplies. All right, so the problem we realized, and this was a very intensive period we spent in 2020 figuring out what the heck was going on, and it really comes down to funding. Let's take a look here at our own pipeline. And Dan Early, with his modular water systems, has got the prefab tech that really, if you look at the right there, you'll see that in many cases, we are what's called basis of design, which means that they have to use our design. Okay, and it's a very large pipeline, and yet it takes months and years. There'll be an interview of Dan Early in a bit, and you'll see what I mean. So now if capital were not an issue, he estimates that 1/3 would close quickly. So this is a multi-8-figure opportunity pipeline that is hostage to funding. Eliminate capital, and that's our bright idea, water on demand, with the benefits of fast deals. Rental or usage model means that credit's easy. If I retain title to the machine, if you don't pay, I take it back. It's not a huge credit problem. Total outsourcing, a lot of people want a turnkey solution, and long life for the customer. I still have my Earthlink address from 1994, right? Why would I change it? And so they've had an immense life cycle benefit. So it's a big barrier to entry. That's very important. Right now, it takes us 9 months, 12 months, a year and a half to get a deal. And during that entire period, we are at risk of the other guy taking the girl, right? In other words, somebody swoops in, offers 5% discount and takes the deal. This is very common in water. There's some large companies that I won't mention by name, won't mention by name, and they rip off projects, right? So, but if you're doing the funding, then they have to come up with funding. And there's a very small percentage of water companies that can actually fund projects. Now, here's what's interesting. Originally, design and build is what we do now, but now you add the outsourcing fees, the service and supply, and the management fees for the funding. So that gives us much more revenue, as much as double the equipment, according to Dan Early. Of course, it requires a managed services division. In fact, we've been talking to a partner of ours, Permionics in India, that have a very active water as a service program. They're managing about $2 million in projects. We may start by subcontracting to them so that we can get off the ground quickly. But there is software out there, and we can quickly move to this model in the United States. Now, there's also a B2C aspect to this, which is how do you take care of consumers like we have been with the Pool Preserver program, which is expanding, by the way, and it's going into commercial pools as well. But that is a good little consumer space opportunity. Many more opportunities with water tankers all over the world, filterless water coolers, and strangely enough, good old bottled water. And there's ways to do that better. And we are in talks. If you were in last week's briefing, you saw the interview with Mohammed Sadiq, who is planning to do this on a self-funded basis so that we would not have to burden the main company. Very promising. Okay, now we're creating these subsidiaries, and Water on Demand number 1, a corporation in Nevada, has been created, and we have a first investment. I have an investment banker working on this to finalize the investment, and we're looking at going to $10 million and to generate about over $100 million in rents, and investors share in net profits, and there'll be more and more of these. So a series of subsidiaries with agreements that protect the investors. All right, now the benefits of these funding companies is that these are all assets that roll up to the parent, meaning us. And it's very important for us to have assets towards our eventual uplisting to the NASDAQ. And this will give us that ability. The assets, leverage, meaning that if there's money in the fund, then how much percent of it, can you do equity to debt leverage? If you're sophisticated, you can get a lot done that way. And it's very important that in-house funding can direct business, not just to our Texas operation, but to any water company that is right for the job. So it's very scalable. It's a money for money play that is not attached to the ability of any one water company. Now we have a partner, Philanthro Investors, which is doing a great job. This is their third year actually they're like Inc. 80 or something like that. And they are doing this, helping us do the same thing in water philanthropy investing. And their real claim to fame is that they have an international network. They're bringing us a lot of investors and water users from abroad. So that's very helpful. I'm going to quickly review how this is going to reorganize. What we've done is we put all operations over into a new site called OriginClear.tech. That's all the subsidiaries. That's the lab. It's the licensing. It's the technology, everything. And then the company itself, these yellow sections are the new website sections, is basically going to have, of course, outsourced water treatment for businesses, the consumer water network, water as a career, which is the whole waterpreneur thing, and then certifications. We're going to certify companies, water equipment, and services as meeting our requirements. That's kind of the lay of the land. And then, of course, there's financing. So more and more, this is going to look like a very high-level company that turns money into projects, but is not tied to specific companies. And I think that's how we're going to get the scale that we need. Okay, now, long-term, we do think that Water on Demand will dramatically increase revenue, profits, and assets. Contracts can go to other water companies, and eventually we'll get what's called a network effect. Well, what is a network effect? Basically, it's the idea that for every node that you add in a network, you get a doubling of it's actually a geometrical increase in your connections. So it's a two-sided network like eBay, for example, or like Uber or Airbnb, where you have water companies and water users forming a two-sided network. It's not like a phone system where it's a one-sided network of a bunch of phones. You have two players. And at a certain point of critical mass, the network becomes a one-stop shop. And that's what's very, very interesting. So that's where we're going with this. And this is so exciting to me. I'm easily excited, but this is really cool. All right. What are we going to do next? Obviously, we're going to continue to build this finance and service activity. Right now we are pursuing Wall Street funding in addition to these, high net worth investors. The existing pipeline will be converted to water on demand where appropriate. For example, a lot of progressive water treatments business is municipalities that often have their own revenue to pay it, but where they need the funding, then we'll do it. The BDC thing will be rolled out. And then eventually with these increased assets, we want to prepare the company for listing. Hi, Dan. Thank you for joining me in the middle of your workday. I appreciate you making the time. So this is to identify in your opportunity forecast which items might be candidates for design, build, own, and operate, whereas all the rest would be design and build only.
It is a mobile home park customer. That's one primary factor. The second is that the owner of this facility, in working in tandem with their local consulting engineer from him, allows this guy to do what he does best, and that is be a developer and not be a utility owner. So this one's been in our pipeline for probably 9 months now, located out in the Midwest. They are having to replace some dilapidated and deteriorated existing treatment equipment that's been on site and functioning for the last 20 some years. The customer loves, we've been selected and basis of design, and they do like our single point of delivery capability.
So just as your general impression, what percentage of potential bids bring up this turnkey concept?
On the private sector, commercial opportunities that we have, it's every bit, it's greater than 50%. It's probably 66% to 75% of the customers ask if we can do that, especially on private sector, because the funding models it's private money and they have the ability and discretion to engage in different delivery models. So on private sector, private money, privately funded systems, the overwhelming majority of all these opportunities they ask that question.
So with that in mind, what percentage by dollar value of these bids is private versus municipal?
Private versus public. I would say right now we're probably running 2 to 1 private versus public.
So 2 to 1. So basically 2/3 of all opportunities are private. And of those, let's say another, 2/3 of those are interested. And so really we're talking about half of all your business, roughly speaking, has this opportunity. That's amazing.
Overall, first phase or both phases combined over a 3-year period, it could be 1.5, 1.6 million.
And they've expressed an interest?
This customer is very indicative of things that you will see in the market. All right, so this is a little smaller customer. Comes into this one entered our pipeline probably, I'd say 75 days ago. So we're working with a consulting engineer, working with our local rep. All right, so the next one, and this is a project that has recently entered our pipeline, but it is a very real project. It's real for a number of compelling reasons. The customer is a craft brewer. They produce craft beers and beverages, located on the East Coast. Facility's been around. This facility and this brewing entity has been around and in operation for probably the better part of a decade. They are located where they do have access to public sewer, but the local public sewer utility does not have the treatment capacity to receive their high strength industrial wastewater from the brewing operation. So they have been prohibited from discharging to public sewer, and they have been forced to pump and haul their brewing wastewater for a number of years now. The flows are not super large. The average daily flow for this industrial waste stream is about 3,000 gallons per day. But the annual pump and haul costs associated with this customer have been from $75,000 per year up to about $100,000 per year. So the pain threshold is immense. We were approached by a design build consultant that was working as an agent, working on behalf of the brewing company. And they this DB firm that we're working with is a firm that we've had a long-standing relationship with. We've delivered equipment to them in the past. They approached us because this is an industrial wastewater system, wanted to know, what can we do? Are there any options? So after reviewing the facility and understanding what their needs were, I recommended an EveraSKID industrial MBR wastewater treatment system, plug and play. It would reside, the equipment would deliver and install inside the brewer's warehouse facility. They have the design build entity that we're working with is very, very keen on the funding and the financing model. What they like about it is that their business model is working with the customer on permitting, design, and construction management. They also have an operations capability. So what they're missing is they're missing the engineered equipment, which is what we are. So we are contemplating the formation of a design build team. They do the engineering and permitting. We design the equipment and build the equipment, deliver the equipment. They manage the construction. They install the equipment. They commission the equipment, but they also engage in a long-term operations contract with the end user. Having an internal funding mechanism as part of the team would probably seal the deal for this one, because what it means is that they don't have to the owner doesn't have to tie up their own capital. They could use the financing model to prorate the annual or the monthly operating costs for whatever period of time. Perfect application for this DBOO model.
So we could actually have a network of partners that would do the operations, commissioning and operations work, and we would be the funders essentially.
Yes, correct. I've actually with the concept of the DBOO model coming into play in recent weeks and months, I actually approached this entity last week and expressed a desire to see if we can implement and partner with them on DBOO projects. They love it. They absolutely love it. The ability to bring funding and financing solves a lot of problems. Their customers, they recognize that this is a delay. This is a hurdle that basically draws out and makes it really prohibitive to get projects accomplished in a much faster fashion.
And what's the value of the equipment deal here, in your opinion?
The equipment package for this customer is probably will be all in with services and on-site commissioning, probably $200,000.
Okay, but just staying consistent with these bid amounts. Apples for apples, what we got here, bid amount would be the equipment only?
Yes, equipment.
That would be how
yes,
much,
sir.
in your opinion?
Equipment only, $175,000.
Okay, it's a nice project.
Very nice.
We are design and build. We're built based on design.
It is.
And it is a very good candidate for DBOO. It's very nice.
Yep.
Fascinating. Well, Dan, I really appreciate your time on this. We've had a nice little look at some of the demand chain out there for funding, and in some cases doing the operating. But I really like the idea of being able to delegate the operating, because that's something we will quickly run out of bandwidth for as we fund it, but now somebody's got to go and run it, right?
Yeah, and well, the good news is that for a lot of these existing customers, where they're doing equipment replacements and upgrades, 98% of the time there's already an operator involved. And the good news is that we would just leverage that existing local operator who's licensed and permitted in that region, and we would directly contract with them or bring them on as part of our team. So that's the beautiful part about this thing, is that we don't have to worry about staffing somebody in-house. We would work with the local capability that's already out there.
Well, that is really good news. It gives us a very simple model, which is essentially be a renter or a use-based, providing these things on a use basis through a funding mechanism that we're building, and everything else is kind of there. So we know how to build them, and there's partners out there who can maintain and operate them. So this could be a sweet little strategy.
It could be, yeah, very well. It's the strategy the industry needs. It really does. This makes it work.
How many players are starting to move into this, or are there barriers to entry? What's going on?
The barrier to let me answer the barrier to entry question first. Barrier to entry is that there are companies out there that are really good at engineering and are good at equipment manufacturing. They don't have the sophistication to bring the funding or the finance model, the banking model capability. That right there has been the thing that over the last 20 years has been the thing that I see that separates those that want to be and those that are. that enter into the industry. There are very few of these companies out there that operate at the level that we're talking about, just because you're trying to pull together all these disparate parts and pieces, and the funding is the one that is the hardest to pull together. The engineering's easy, the permitting's easy, building equipment's easy, doing the construction fairly straightforward. It's the funding model, and that is what seals the deal. When you bring that together, that's when it happens. That's when the magic happens.
How much effort or focus are you putting to addressing the water needs of cleanliness with the oil companies?
That has been, as you know, a near and dear project of mine. Is they're problematic because they keep having crashes, and whenever they crash, then all their improvements, they just shut things down. No, we're not going to spend a dime.
The way you talk and keeping it simple, the network concept, it actually could go exponential if we just keep focus and not overreach.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are doing a great job. Just keep doing it and keeping us informed.
Thank you to OriginClear and yeah, all the clubs, but to all the team that is actually always in communication and carrying the day-to-day of this, the vision of all the investors that wants to really do something for the business. So thank you, guys.
I just thought you did a great job in showing us on the line by line, sort of the scalability. It's small, medium, large, whatever you want, one size fits all. Water flows to seek its own level or its own size of project.
Okay, guys. Well, listen, we've taken it long enough. It's been wonderful. I want to see thumbs up if you want to see this every 90 days. All right.
All right, good.
We're going to do this thing. Thank you all. And I'll be doing the briefing tomorrow, but some of it will be rehashed. I hope you join me anyway. Thank you and have a good evening. Thank you for your patience. Daryl Polston, Cat's Water Technologies, Solar Power Desalination. Well, Daryl, this is exactly it. We don't have to be technology based. We have a great technology division. Tar Marchisello is doing a fabulous job. The Q1 looks like it really came in great. So no concerns there. But when we look at scalability, as I work with my team on the funding side to push capital in, we're going to run out of bandwidth in Texas. So our idea is, hey, I got money. Guess how many people? I remember years ago in the early 90s, I was in Hollywood, and I met with this young lady at an Italian restaurant, and she was telling me how horrible and then could not get in the film industry because that's what I was trying to do at the time. And and I said, well, what if I brought the money? She said, oh, in that case, you're a god. You can have anything you want. I'm like, okay, I get what it's all about. So if we got the funding, then we can bless projects with that funding. And that's why it's so key. Ken Berenger, who has been really vital to this process, just put oc.gold/Ken in your browser and schedule a consultation or send an email or call us. And as I was saying, good news from Q1. Guys, I really, really appreciate the time you spent with me tonight. It's been a great show. I'm so excited about how we have this tight focus on water on demand, which is a money for money play. And we know that there's lots of money sloshing around, and we're learning how to do it in various ways with this real estate, with Wall Street funding. I'm talking actively to Wall Street funders right now, family offices. There's all kinds of ways we can do this. And I've brought in an investment banker to consult with me. So, because I'm not an investment banker, I'm an operator. So I know my limits. So the bottom line is that we can do this. And having done this with the capital, we put in place processes, roll it out, and we have the ability to handle these problems at the decentralized point of the problem, which I've been pointing out to you is the only way to solve it. It's not going to be solved centrally. Treat all central water as a problem and take care of it at the point of use. And that is our philosophy. I feel like, I've been talking about this since 2016, literally, when I started writing articles about it. But now it's becoming real. People are aware of it, and we're right in the right place to do it. So thank you all for your support and your attention. And we're going to take it off now tonight. Have a great weekend. I'll see you next week on this show. Thank you so much.